We are live.
We are live. It's another day, another week, another live. Look, people are already here. We've already got people checking in, saying hi. Hi Sheila, hi Jim, hi Jack. Everybody's ready already.
Everybody's pumped and ready to go.
The announces they're not watching, so they must have left their comment and then they left. They said, "Oh, these guys aren't live yet." Oh, here they are. Now everybody's coming on live. So what's going on in the world, Curtis? So today is September 22nd.
Yep.
12:30 Pacific, 2:30 Central, 2:32. What are we talking about today? What's our webinar?
I think we're talking about the state of the real estate market in the great state of Texas. We're not going to talk about California today. Just stick with Texas.
All right. Before we get into the Texas real estate market, I will say something about California, which is pretty unique.
Yeah.
So, and it's probably going to just scare a whole bunch of Texans too. So I have been about a month ago, we left Texas in an RV to go start traveling the world and go find the normal places in the world, because the news made it sound like the world was falling apart. And what we've experienced is it's actually not true. As soon as we got, outside of downtown Austin and started going to other places, the world was doing pretty good. A lot of people were out there functioning and just wanting to get back to work and doing things. So on my journey, we got up to South Dakota and my daughter broke her ankle in South Dakota, jumping on this little air pillow at an RV campground. So we had to rush over to California. We have a house in California. We're out here resting her ankle with a cast on it. And as soon as we can get back on the road, we get to go finish starting our journey back to Texas, back to the great state of Texas. So what I know about California is not much has changed since I left. When I got here, it was very, very smoky. And everybody that came over and hung out with me since we've been in town in California has said they are moving. And there are quite a few of them that are planning to move to Texas. And there's others that are trying to move all over the place. They're moving to Tennessee. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Colorado. They're moving to Idaho. So the people are moving all over the place right now. And, I did this interesting as we start to get into statistics and economics and what's really happening in the real estate market. I did this interesting podcast last week. Part of it was from Gary Keller. I was taking some of what Gary Keller spoke to his KW people about last week. But he said there's two different economies happening right now. And so a lot of people will say, hey, if the news says the world is so bad, why is houses selling so much? Why are there so many offers? Why are so many people wanting to do this? And I've had the same question. I've been like, why is there such a high demand when the world is so bad? And so he described it as there's actually two different economies right now. People in the finance industry, they've got an unemployment rate right now around 4%, which is pretty much just normal. That means like normal employment. There's always like 4% of people in finance that are looking for a job or changing. But the number of people unemployed in the services industry and, in restaurants and hotels, things like that, was like 27%, something crazy, really high amount. And so what does that really explain? The people that are usually in that service industry are renters. People that work at restaurants, work at hotels, they usually rent their home. They usually don't buy their home because of their income level. People in finance usually do buy their home. And so the demand, and the other thing about those people in finance, so let's say somebody was already making $100,000 a year, and now they can't go out to eat at restaurants. They can't go travel. They can't go on vacation. So now they have more money in savings than they had. All of a sudden they're making more every month and they're stacking it up. But now they also have to work from home. Maybe they're going to also be homeschooling and they're realizing their house isn't quite big enough. So the people that are buying houses are the people that their job income has stayed the same. They have extra money because they're not traveling, and they realize they have new needs because the world has changed a little bit. So that's why we have this crazy high demand for stuff. Every time, I've talked about every webinar we're on, every time we list a house, we get a dozen offers on it. I've had some recently that we actually bought it at auction and did no work to it, meaning it still had the vacancy sticker on the door from the servicer. This is like totally against my rules of how to flip a house, but I wanted to experiment and test the market. And I left the blue tape on the toilets that said it's been winterized. I left the sign-in sheet for the foreclosure and just put it right on the MLS like that. All we did was change the locks and put a lockbox on it and put on the MLS. And I got an offer on that house. Now I didn't get as much as I was hoping for it, but the dollar amount that I was hoping was even really pushing past what it should have gotten. So that just goes to show the strong market that's out there for houses, especially at the lower end. Yeah, and it's been interesting. So what else what have you been thinking about when it comes to real estate market?
Man, I think that we're still seeing, I mean, on the flip side of that, you talked about financiers are buying houses and then people in the service industry are renting houses. We're seeing some effects of that rental in our portfolios that we manage right now, right? So CDC came out I think it was about a month ago, said, hey, if you fill out this declaration form, you can't get evicted. And, there was a lot of, I mean, for myself, I was curious if that was actually going to work, if judges were going to actually apply it. It doesn't seem like anybody really knows what's going on. But we're starting to see that happen, right? We're getting tenants into that CDC declaration form. We're seeing and the courts are saying, hey, we can't evict those people. So kind of on the flip side, I think we are seeing a little bit of a backlash or maybe, the COVID effect on the rental part of everything. But we've, like you said, we're able to sell properties really quickly. And so on the other side of that, it's looking a little bit more, a little brighter.
Yeah. It's a great point because since March in the great state of Texas, people have been paying their rent because for the most part, life was normal and people didn't have a place to go to. There weren't new houses selling. People were getting extra stimulus and things like that. So we had the highest occupancy level in the rentals we ever had. We were increasing rents at every turnover. So for the first 5 months of, COVID 2020, the rental market was really strong for us as investors. And we were pretty baffled by it, really. And then in just this last month, we've seen more people start to get behind. Now, luckily, we're still at such a high occupancy rate. We're probably still bringing in more rent than we were a year ago. Because let's say a year ago, we had a 10% occupancy rate. Right now, we have a 0% occupancy rate, but now we do have, 6 people that aren't paying rent. But the example that you gave was, you won an eviction hearing.
Yeah.
Where you actually went to court. They said, okay, you have the property. And then the next step is you go file a writ. And that writ is so that way the sheriff goes and meets you at the property so that when you go change the lock, they can forcefully remove the person if you need to. But the person is essentially supposed to already have left. And you went to file that writ and they sent you something back and said, hey, the person filled out this CDC form. So we're changing your writ date to January 4th.
Yep, exactly.
That blew my mind. And so I thought the last place that was going to happen was in Bell County, Texas, right? Because that has been the total opposite for the last 6 months. They must have thought that form was strong enough that their hands were tied. But it is wild to me that someone has already missed a couple months of payments. They got formally evicted. And then they signed that form and it says, hey, they aren't going to do anything. And the judge automatically postponed it 3.5 months. So now they know, they can't be evicted for 3.5 months. The good thing that the form does is it makes them sign something that says, I will pay whatever I can. It's like an affidavit. And it says, if you're lying about this, you can be charged with a felony. So it's like, I'm going to pay whatever I can. I'm going to continue. I know that I'm responsible for it. And they say these 5 or 6 things. And so that's the good part of it. And that's what we're, reaching back out to tenants about.
Yeah. So, the other side of that is, we're getting a little bit more guidance now. The Texas State Supreme Court actually issued a ruling 4 days ago on evictions, right? The CDC thing came out. Everybody was like, what's going on? Judges didn't know what to do. But I guess from our side, my perspective, the negative side of this is that now the Supreme Court is actually telling courts that whenever somebody is served with a citation of eviction, to give them that CDC declaration form. So we've been wondering, why is everybody all of a sudden getting this CDC declaration form? I just read it in the news. It said that the Supreme Court actually issued that order that says, hey, whenever they get that citation, they also get the CDC form.
Yeah, that was exactly what we were talking. That is news to me, but that is what we were talking about this morning. Was that
So
how are they figuring it out?
Yeah, so Joy's asking, what if those tenants damage the home? Are they able to pay for that? And I think the answer to that is no. You've got until January 4th. They can stay in the property until January 4th.
Right. That is the biggest part of it. So it's not just for non-payment of rent. They could be full violations of whatever at this point. Right. So it does mean if they fill out that form, they have to sign an affidavit. Now, part of it is they have to also be saying that they know they're the real person that's living there and they have a right to be there with a lease. But yes, at the end of the day, what's supposed to happen, it also says that come January 4th, you're going to owe all your past rent. And if they damaged it, they're going to owe that too. We can't make them move until January 4th. So that's the crazy part. We can't make them move till January 4th, but if they do damage it, if they do owe rent, they owe that at the end of this like 3 or 4 months. The downside is, I think, as most people know, most residents, most people renting a house won't be able to all of a sudden come up with 3 or 4 months of rent. So best case is hopefully the people still want to have good, strong credit. Hopefully they still want to have a good, strong place to live. And so they're going to pay as much of that rent as they can. And hopefully people don't abuse the system. Unfortunately, whenever there's assistance that is this broad and this extreme, I do know that some people will take advantage of the system. And that's always the disappointing thing to me.
Yeah. But on the flip side, we're seeing a strong sales market. And I mean, if we want to pull up the Texas A&M data, I mean, it looks like months of inventory across Texas right now are still staying low. We haven't seen kind of the growth that we thought we would at this point. I personally thought that maybe that after the summer passed and people were past that kind of COVID quarantine, I have to move out of my house and get a bigger house, that we would see inventory levels rise. But really, we haven't seen that, if we look through, the data from, through the end of August. So.
Yeah, I was going to pull up some of that too, as you're talking about, the housing market is strong for the most part, and we'll show everybody how to see that. But it says right now we have, essentially 1,696 foreclosure postings scheduled for October. There's a few small counties that just updated their lists, right? There's a few counties that finally put that stuff online. So, but it says we're down about 100 postings from last month. A normal month in Texas, this is 5,000 or 6,000. So we're down to, under a third or about a third. Do you think we're going to hit, do you think we're going to hit the number where it's even for the month? Or do you think we're going to be down slightly for the month?
I think we'll be right about even. I think just looking at the postings that we have to process for this very small counties, probably looking at 1,750 ish postings, which would give us a little bit more than last year or last month. But this time last month, like you said, we had 5,000 postings. So it's crazy what's going to happen. Yeah.
And for anyone out there trying to see what's really happening with the market, a couple things that's really crazy. And you can go to recenter.tamu.edu. Let me put that in the comments. We are big fans of using this website to be able to check to see. So we put that out in the comments. You guys will be able to find this one. But you kind of just choose your metro area and you can see a lot of stuff. So we're going to show you guys how to read this. So I'm jumping over to Austin. And as we jump down, they chart a few things. How many sales? In Austin, January 1990, there was 558 sales. The median price was 71,000. Average price 84,000. And months of inventory was 7.9. So back in 1990, that's a bad market. So 7.9 months of inventory means we think it's going to take about 7.9 months for everything to sell if they sold at the pace of last month. And so and right now we know it's a lot slower than that. So again, so look at that. So 558. 71,000, 7.9. Now it's been 30 years. It should be a lot higher, but now there's 4,000 sales a month. The average price is 470. The median price is 455, and we have 1.4 months of inventory. We say anywhere between 3 to 4 months of inventory is a solid, healthy market, a good market to invest in. If it takes you 90 days to sell a house, that's good, and so that's where that 3 months of inventory kind of comes from. So right now, in most places, we're at 1.4. Now, the other thing I was going to show you, so the August 2020, 470,000, 355,000. Let's go back to last year, just a year ago, 390,000, 319,000. So we're up, 20% on the average price, 15% on the median price. And if you go just back to March, so before everything went crazy, 329,000 was our median, 412 was our average. We're up $58,000 for our average transaction. You got all over the place. So that is one of the big states of the market right now that we're talking about. Prices are going up like crazy. Houses are selling fast. If you have a house that doesn't sell, the other part about this months of inventory, if you list a house on the market and you don't get an offer within 1.4 months, that means your price too high or there's something wrong with it. There's two different things. If nobody shows up, your pictures are bad or your price too high. If you get a lot of showings and people show up and nobody's buying it, then that means that the quality when they get there isn't as good as the pictures made it look like. So you can choose this for all sorts of different counties. I just saw a comment come up for Houston. Let's just see what the market's like over in Houston now too, before we look at that. Here's one of the other things too. So red is the amount of sales that we've had, the number of home sales each month. So in March, every year it had slightly gone up. So you look at 2018, 2019, 2020, 2018, 2019. So year over year, you had these trends. Well, it was way down in April. That was right after coronavirus hit. Still way down in May. June, it started to make up for lost time. And then July was the biggest July they'd ever had. And most people I know that own real estate offices had the biggest July they'd ever had. Waiting for these August statistics because I don't think that we've sustained the same number, but we'll see if we have. But down to Houston. So back then, Houston had 2,500 sales, also 9 months of inventory. And we jump now they had 11,000 sales in July, 3 months of inventory. And if you go back to March, so they were at 308 to 336. That's about a 10% increase. So the market has not jumped up quite as much in Houston, not as much of a buyer's market there. I would guess that, and that's even so 10% increase is still significant. Maybe it's like an 8% sales price increase in Houston, but Houston is not as strong as in Austin. Doesn't mean I would really invest much different, but this is a tool that people can use before they're investing anywhere to see, what they should be doing. I think it was, College Station down to 4 months of inventory, not that much of a seller's market. And when you look back to, April was 278,000. Now it's 283. Not much of a price increase in College Station. And so every place is different. And so one of the things that you do when people are telling you, that everything's going great is you can just go try to dig in to the data. So we're seeing foreclosure postings will be up a little bit. And we had a question come in. What about Dallas? Let me go ahead and I'll bring the screen back up so we can pull that up for everybody. So Dallas, we were at, when you look at your number of sales, so June was big, July was even bigger, August was down now to more of a normal level, right? If it was gradually going up every month, the August chart in Dallas looks normal. Back in 1990, 16 months of inventory. As we jump all the way down there, 2 months of inventory in Dallas. Sales price is 363,000. Back in March, it was 334, and it went up from 279 to 300. So there again, you're seeing like an 8% increase. There's an 8% sales increase in the last 6 months in Dallas. Not huge, right? Well, huge in a normal year, not huge compared to other places, right? So that makes me also feel like it's a safer market. Anytime prices go up a lot, you have to worry that as soon as there's a correction, what will change with that. And I'll pull up one more. We've got the San Antonio request came in, and San Antonio, the similar June and July were way up. August looked more in line, and we're down to 2.5 months of inventory. Sales price 297,000. Sales price back in March was 273,000. So this one you're up about 7-8% on, sales prices too. So another thing that came out is the Fed came out and said they're going to keep interest rates locked for the next 3 years. It was really funny. So some people are like, hey, that's great. We have low rates forever. And part of me said, that's bad news because that means the Fed thinks we aren't getting any better for at least 3 years.
Yeah.
Like that the economy is going to be hurting for 3 years. I would have been happier had they said, hey, for the foreseeable future, we're going to keep rates low. But them actually saying like, hey, for the next 3 years, I see that as that means they don't have much faith in the economy coming back, or that's how long they think. There's really smart people over there. So when people are saying, hey, when is the economy going to get better? When is employment going to get better? When is that going to happen? I think it's also as people are trying to look at where to invest in different markets right now, what to do with their money. I think they really need to be thinking about the fact, again, there's 2 different markets happening right now. Just like we said at the beginning, for people with normal jobs, they not only have hardly any unemployment in the finance industry, but they're bringing home more money than they ever made before because now they're working from home. Now they're not spending money on extracurricular stuff. And so they're going to spend it on housing. And now it's going to be, and then the other side of that is, in the renters market where it's service industry, things like that, the unemployment's pretty high right now. And that's where most of the assistance going. Sheila had said Houston evictions were up in September. A sheriff was interviewed. He said he usually has about 40 evictions per month. And in September, it was 200. Up until a week ago, evictions were going normal. And I also saw some news articles that said that people, when they saw the ruling come or the announcement come that evictions were going to get postponed to the beginning of the year, a huge number of people put everything into eviction as soon as they could. They figured like, oh no, this is our deadline. We need to get these done before that happened. And it sounds like the ones that Curtis did, we just didn't beat the clock on that. But that was a pretty common thing. When they made an announcement like, hey, there's something's going to come out that's going to postpone this to the end of the year, there was a huge run up, especially on institutional investors that owned multiple houses, multiple apartment complexes. They fast tracked evictions. And so the stats that Sheila mentioned in there, are pretty much the same all over the place, but now that's put to a halt, right? So anything that didn't actually happen already is now that CDC stuff is changing. So any other questions out there from anybody about the state of the market right now? Foreclosure postings, the list is out. Auction is in a couple weeks. We've had a lot more people showing back up for auction. We think one of the biggest opportunities right now with our foreclosure list is people being able to go buy the properties before auction, because people have a unique opportunity right now to do that. Right, they have a unique opportunity right now to have more time to sell that. And if nobody brings up a question, I'm going to pull up just an interesting story that I did yesterday in our PropHawk software.
So while you're pulling that up, Aaron, I mean, when we're talking about the two different markets, we're saying like there's a finance market and those people are traditionally buying, but there's also the rental market. What is that? I mean, is there a place that you think that investors can target for rentals? Is there like a sweet spot that maybe you stay away from? You stay away from the $150,000 rentals and maybe you go towards the higher end stuff.
Yeah. I think people are gonna have to start doing a lot of theories of where they think is the safest.
Yeah.
Because I think the higher end rental market is if you're inside a city, if you're downtown Austin, downtown San Francisco, you're in trouble because people are leaving those cities and flocking because now they can work from home. But if you're at a high priced rental market, outside the main city areas, you're around like a $3,000 a month price point or something. That's a really unique price point because you're going to have people that are really good, well-qualified renters, people with good credit that care about their credit, that aren't going to use an incentive to not pay the rent. In general, I'm telling people they should be flipping houses right now instead of buying new rentals. I would not buy anything for a long-term hold right now because when you look at those prices, we're at an all-time high. So if sales prices are at an all-time high right now in your market, if you go look at that RE Center website, and if you are in an all-time high, don't buy a house right now for a hold, because the 10, 15, 20 years from now, it'll probably be worth more than it is right now. But I think in a year or two, we would be hard pressed to see it be worth more, especially it's kind of like there used to be this philosophy, Reaganomics used to be this thing that said, hey, if you do a bunch of corporate tax cuts, the money will flow downhill. They will pay their employees more. So if you don't tax the guys at the top, they'll pay their employees more. Everyone will make more money. And that takes like 10 years to actually play out. And by the time that it could, policy changes. So who knows, right? Who knows if it can work? We're going to see the reverse right now. Businesses need the service workers to survive. Absolutely, 100%. They need them to be able to survive. And so if 25% of the service workers aren't employed, that means 25% of the people that are buying products aren't buying the products. They aren't doing the things. And so it's going to do the reverse. So they would say, hey, save money to the guy that owns the corporation and he's going to pay all his people more. If the people at the bottom aren't making money, if they don't have jobs, it will affect the people that own the businesses, period. People will, a 5% change in how much money people spend at Walmart is a huge change. So right now I'm saying short-term flips is where I would put stuff into. I wouldn't do many bets on rentals just because prices seem to be really, really high.
Joy's asking about, where do we find all this eviction info? And Joy, it's scattered throughout Texas, right? So in Texas, most of the evictions are handled by Justice of the Peace. I don't know, is that plural? By the Justice of the Peace. So like, let's say in Bell County, Justices of the Pieces. All right, sorry. There's in Bell County, there's like 4 precincts, right? In Tarrant County, there's 7. So the larger the county, the more precincts there are. We have to figure out which precinct those properties are in, and then you have to contact or go to that justices of the correct Justice of the Peace and find that eviction information. So every county is different. We're seeing we filed in Bell County and frankly, we have they're not accepting cases. We also filed in Comal County and we're getting responses back from them. So it seems like the counties are not necessarily on the same page. There is, even in the article we just put into the comments, they were talking about in Harris County, even the different precincts within Harris County are not doing the same thing. So each precinct is different. They have different judges. And they all kind of have different opinions and politics, and there's a lot that goes into it. So there's not one central place to find eviction info unless you're looking for legal information. We would suggest you talk to an attorney or look for Texas property codes. If you just type in like Texas eviction laws, there's tons of resources in Google. But if you need help on that, we do offer eviction coaching and eviction services, and you can always get on our website, chat with Jack, and he'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, Curtis's team are eviction experts right now, and so we haven't done as great of a job telling our members what are all the services we do. We should add a ticker to some of these so they can actually see what are all the things that people can help with. But pretty much, if you've got a question in real estate, you need help, send it in the messenger. We can help you with that. And when it comes to eviction services and things like that, Curtis can handle that stuff.
So Jim's asking, one more question. Jim's asking about kind of price points in the DFW area. And I think that's a good question. Like when we look in Austin, I would have, if before looking at the data, I would have told you that the more expensive areas are going to have more inventory just because it takes longer to flip those. But like in Austin, I think we just saw that it's around $400,000 for the average property. And it has like 1.4 months of inventory. Where at the same time in Bell County, I think the average house is probably about $150,000, and we're seeing about 1.4 months worth of inventory there. So it does seem like just in those low inventory markets, that's kind of the indicator we're looking at right now. When we see a low inventory, we're pulling, we're seeing our properties flipping quicker. In the DFW area, I think just personally, I've seen like houses flying off the market all over Metro DFW, but even we put a house on the market in Rockwall and had 3 cash offers that day. Same thing in Kaufman County. So we're kind of seeing it all over Metro and kind of those rural areas. It seems like some people are trying to get out of Dallas and move out towards that getting more land or to those more developed neighborhoods.
Yeah. More specifically on some of that price distribution stuff. I mean, they do have the same charts. You can go through, months of inventory, which I think is important, but then also just the price distribution. And so here it's showing like 2018 to 2019, not much has changed in these areas. Now they don't have their 2020 stats up yet. So to be able to see, what could be having an impact with that price distribution, but over time, it hasn't really changed that much as markets have gone up and down. Like 2012 was the bottom of a market, and right now we're really hitting around the top of the market. And you'll see, volume percentage wise, it's just up everywhere, right? Like there isn't all of a sudden more in one place or another. There's slightly less in the $100,000 to $150,000 market because I think there just isn't very much available, for those. And then you have more of your transactions happening kind of in the middle, but not all the bell curves are this, this even. This seems very even, which tells me that there isn't a difference in demand between about 150 and 500,000. In the Dallas area, the demand doesn't change. When you get up, anytime you get to where there's only a few houses on the market, though, you will see a difference, right? You'll see a difference in going. So what's really happening there? If there's only 5 houses over $1 million, well, there's less buyers for that. But go and you compare that same price distribution, to other places. You're seeing there's there's a $100,000 price point that's really popular, and as you get bigger, it gets smaller. As you go to some places that are outside, El Paso, the price goes down, but that bell curve stays the same. There's about $100,000 range that most of the stuff happens in, but not seeing a difference in demand, from one to another.
Yeah, I'd say for us right now, like our main indicator of whether or not that market is healthy is going to be, just looking at the months of inventory. And when we start seeing that get closer to 4, then I think that's going to be an indicator that it might be time to start buying rentals instead of flips. Yeah,
I agree. I'm only on here for another couple minutes today. I know this was a quick webinar for us to jump through. We can knock out a few more questions. I don't know if I'll be able to show some of the prop hawk charts I was going to get into. But Joy had another question. Said, would we recommend a new first-time home buyer wait to purchase? Wow, and this is totally like a bet or a gamble. And my brother is a really busy real estate agent would tell me I was crazy for saying this, but I would say, yeah, I would absolutely tell new first-time home buyers to wait. But there are as many other people out there that will tell you the opposite, right? So I am one vote of one guy that looks at it a certain way. There's also a whole lot of other factors that go into that. Are they planning to live in that house for the next 10 years? Are they trying to find a house that's going to last for a year or two, and then they know they're going to buy again because they're going to have more kids? That's a different conversation than somebody saying, hey, they know they love the city. They've been here for 10 years. They know they're going to be here for another 10. They just want a place that's theirs. If they're going to own the house for 10 years, it's a different conversation than if they're going to own the house for 2, or they're going to own the house for 3.
Yeah, and I'd say to clarify, we're talking about if you're buying a home to live in, right? If we would suggest, I think this is a decent market for a first time investor to invest in, right?
As a flip.
Because you can flip that, you can turn that property quickly. Again, the key is to get in, have a good plan. We have a construction company that can help you with that, but have a plan to acquire the property. Know what you have to do, and then with the plan to kind of divest of that and get it off the market quickly.
Yeah, that is the key right now. I also think when I say people should be doing quick flips right now, those aren't flips that might have a 90-day construction on them.
Yeah.
Because right now the market's really strong, and in 90 days the world could be very different. We've got elections coming up, we've got policies coming up, we've got people talking about vaccines and everything else. We also have, so it's like life's either going to start getting better or it's going to start getting worse. Every month you have 25% unemployment in the industry is bad, right? So every month longer that goes, but that could quickly change. The news can quickly change one way to another. We've got a lot of stuff going on over the next few months. So rather than bet, I would say don't bet at all. Just wait and watch the next few months. But again, different conversation. If someone's going to live in a house for 10 years, they're looking at something that's different. Short term, a lot of stuff's up in the air. So if you want to flip a house and you're going to have sold it within 90 days, now's a great time. There's only 1.5 months of inventory. But the long-term holds a little bit different. We're not buying any rentals right now. But again, I'm one vote. I interview a lot of guys on our Real Estate Rockstars podcast too that are still helping a lot of first-time home buyers buy houses right now, and they work with people to buy their dream home a lot more often than I do. So totally understood. The last little thing. So I'm gonna jump on quick and show us some of the examples of what we have now in our PropHawk software. As people go into PropHawk, any of our members that are getting the foreclosure data, we've added these profile sheets, which are just fantastic. They show so much of the history of the property. It's really, really exciting to me. So we show, all the normal stuff that we had before, built in 1938, 1372 square feet. We say it's a market value of around 598,000 on this one. Taxes are based on 627,000. This is a house in Austin. But now you can see the history of the house. So they bought the house back in 1996. In 1999, they had a $100,000 loan on it. That's it. They had a $100,000 loan. We talked about we just pulled up that chart back in 1990, what the market was like. In 1996, they had a $100,000 loan on it. 6 years later, peak of the market at that time, 2005, they had a $188,000 loan on it. So not much else had changed. They had a $188,000 loan on their house. So originally they had it in cash, refinanced some things on there. And then in 2016, they said, hey, we're going to sell this thing. They had owned it for 20 years. Let's try to sell this for $615,000. So it was active, and then it failed. It didn't sell. And then they tried to list it for $625 a few months later, and then it didn't sell. And it kept going through kind of that process. And so it didn't sell in 2016. In 2018, they got a new loan instead. They said, hey, we weren't able to sell it, but they took out a $468,000 loan, which means they pulled out $350,000, right? Or whatever my math is there, $320,000. They had a $188,000 loan. Now they pulled out a $468,000 loan. That's a cash out refinance. Or actually, the purchase amount was $468,000. The loan amount was $333,000. So they pulled $150,000 out. And that was in August of 2018. For that $375,000 loan, now a year later, October 2019, they got posted for foreclosure. So that $375,000 loan, that means they did a hard money refinance on it. They pulled money out. A year later, they missed their payments. They got posted for foreclosure. That was in October. Then that got canceled. So they made the payments, they caught up, and then it got posted for foreclosure again, December of 2019. 3 months later, in March of this year, they got a new mortgage. They refinanced again. This time they got a $400,000 loan. They paid off that $375,000 loan. And then now they listed it for sale again. So then right after they got that loan, they listed it on the market for $649,000. Now, 7 months later, they're posted for foreclosure again. That $400,000 loan is posted for foreclosure. It's scheduled for foreclosure in October. This is some really interesting information that now people can see on any one of our foreclosure properties that we post info on. And just a little tip that I would use for people to start using those stories is you can find properties like that where you can clearly figure out what's the motivation. This person had the house and they just want to sell it. They want to be able to cash out some money and sell it. They believe it's worth a certain amount and they want to pull that out. When they couldn't do it the first time, they refinanced and they were able to pull out $150,000. Like, cool. So they kept the house, kept making payments, made some money that way. Now they want to sell it. Right. So now they want to sell it again. And so they keep getting these temporary hard money loans that are like, hey, I'm going to sell it for 600. Can I get a loan for 400? And as that point positions back. But that to me is somebody that's really interested in selling. Right. So now they have this new deadline. They either have to refinance again, and maybe the next lender is going to look at that and go, hey, you've been in default now 3 times. So maybe a hard money lender is going to use that and reach out to them and say, hey, we'll give you a $400,000 loan for the next 6 months. Or maybe if you're an investor, you could reach out to that person and say, hey, let me pay off your loan for $400,000 and then let's partner. Let's flip it together. Let me help you fix it up. Let me figure out how to sell it for 600. Instead of you paying interest, now we'll just do a profit share or something like that. Or maybe it's a chance that you could go to them and just buy it from them for 450, because now they may get to the point where they're like, hey, we've refied this 3 times. It just isn't selling. We just want some cash to be able to walk away. So if you haven't seen what we're offering yet with PropHawk, you got to go check it out. There's so much property history there. It's completely free, for the properties. And there's so much of a story that you get to learn there. So last question was, are foreclosures still happening? Are auctions still happening? And the answer is yes, auctions are still happening. In most of the places. Is it canceled anywhere yet? Bexar County has had the most cancellations. Harris County has had a few cancellations since March. Any other, a bunch of them canceled in like April and May. Like that was, but right now, almost everywhere is doing auction, right?
Yeah. So we're not seeing any yet, right? It's on a month-to-month basis. It seems like in Bexar County, it's like the day before the auction, there's one judge will issue an order that says that the foreclosure auction is canceled. Some trustees are listening to that. Most are. But we are still seeing some trustees show up. So Bexar County is right now it's on, but in Harris County it's a kind of a unique county because all of those all the foreclosures actually happen inside of an event center. So it's up to the county commissioners and that event center working together to make sure that happens. I would suggest just sending us a chat the day before auction. We can definitely help you. We're seeing, like, we were talking to banks or FHA and different banks, and they're saying that most vacant properties are still going to get foreclosed on, but a lot of occupied properties they're waiting until January 2021 to start. So again, we are expecting to see kind of that spigot turn back on in early 2021. That answered I pre-answered a lot of questions there, Andrew.
You did great. My dog is taking over my meeting, and so I think you're going to have to close this one out for us.
All right. Well, guys, if you have questions, we really appreciate you guys staying on and hopping on this. These are some of our favorite webinars to do because we just get to talk about real estate investing and in the markets in Texas. So we appreciate you guys hopping on. If you have questions after this, leave them in the comments below. Like the video, give us a thumbs up. It helps us out. It helps us know that you like these webinars. And then, just leave your questions below. And I think that's it. So we appreciate you guys. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for joining us.